Hey everyone, what's going on? Shad Dales here, and welcome into the TDR International Weekly Recap presented by Prohibition Partners. I know we focus a lot on North America, but some big news this week as we're tracking things in the global cannabis markets where it's gaining ground and where the next big shift is definitely happening overseas. So this week, we're following 4 countries that are shaping really what the international cannabis industry will look like moving forward. It's Germany, it's Thailand, Australia, and Israel. We cover a lot of these countries each and every week. And each of them right now, they're facing one common theme, real pressure, but also some real opportunity. But the direction they're heading, it could be different in many different ways. So what do I mean by that? Well, let's get into our latest TDR Weekly International Recap presented by Prohibition Partners. All right, let's start again with what we always do, which is Germany, where import volumes, they continue to explode, and that's putting it mildly. Germany imported a record 56.9 tons of medical cannabis in Q3. That is the biggest quarterly total ever. That brings 2025 imports to 142.5 tons, already more than double than last year. And if this pace holds, the country will clear 200 tons by year's end. So on paper, this looks like it's booming, but really it couldn't be more complicated. Why? Well, according to analysis from Business of Cannabis, this isn't patient growth driving the surge. So what is? It's strategic stockpiling. Wholesalers, distributors, and pharmacies are racing to fill warehouses ahead of new restrictions coming under the revised Medical Cannabis Act. Okay, I see what's going on here. So this may tighten rules around pricing, prescriptions, and shipping. So there's more to this story. As we know, Canada remains the top supplier with more than 66,000 kilograms shipped so far this year. Portugal is close behind with over 42,000. And then we have Denmark, Spain, and North Macedonia rounding out the pack right now. But not everyone, as we know, is keeping up. Right now, when we look at the Netherlands, they were once a dominant exporter. They have fallen sharply from 5,000 kilograms last year to just 1,700 kilograms in 2025. So what's up with that? At the same time, German regulators are tightening their stance. A pharmacy inspection in Berlin, they flagged significant quality gaps in a GMP certified tied to a Canadian distributor, and BFARM is now reviewing sterilization methods used on irradiated flower. Okay, so here's the bigger issue in all this. Germany only has just over 600,000 patients, and retail prices, they remain inconsistent. So that means a lot of this product may never actually reach consumers, especially once it ages out of its shelf life. So the takeaway, here is the takeaway, everyone. Germany is still the anchor of Europe's cannabis economy, but the market right now is becoming more competitive. Imports indeed keep climbing, but oversupply and price compression are already forming beneath the surface. So operators entering now need precision, they need compliance, and distribution clarity, or let's face it, they're going to get swallowed up. So keep your eye on this, because as we know, everything starts and ends in Europe with Germany. All right, let's now head to Asia, and more specifically Thailand, where cultivators are growing frustrated with international buyers. So what does this all mean? Thailand wants to position itself as a global cannabis supplier right now. Thousands of GACP certified growers, large GMP facilities, and booming health tourism sector have helped build one of Asia's most open cannabis markets. But they're running into a serious problem. So what is it? Well, it's foreign buyers pushing prices so low that producers can't stay profitable. Again, this sounds familiar. Growers represented by Phuket Cannabis Association say mid-grade flower should sell for around THB 45 per gram, or roughly $2.10 AUD. Yet some importers, particularly in Europe and Australia, are offering less than 20% of that price. So with that, it's creating a damaging cycle. Producers lower their standards to hit unsustainable price points. Intermediate processors GMP wash low-grade flower, and then ultimately Thailand's reputation takes a hit. One grower actually told Cannabis that buyers request premium flower in large quantities, then cancel most of that order, hurting small producers that were relying on that sale. So despite all this, Thailand's domestic market, it definitely continues to rise actually. National data shows the combined cannabis and hemp sector, it hit 1.2 billion euro in 2024 and could reach 1.7 billion euro next year. So a good climb. So when we look into the future, the government's long-term goal is to become ASEAN's cannabis hub by 2030, but that won't happen without fair, stable international partnerships. So right now, Thailand is learning some tough lessons here. Global cannabis trade isn't just about volume, it's about trust, pricing discipline, and quality consistency, something that we're very familiar with here in North America as well. All right, let's now move to the land down under in Australia, where the market is under real pressure. Again, new data from the Office of Drug Control, it shows that imports jumped 74% in 2020 2024, reaching 77,000 kilograms. Meanwhile, locally grown cannabis rose to over 41,000 kilograms, which is a solid increase, but nowhere near enough to compete with the imported flow. Once again, Canada dominates imports into Australia, supplying 80% of all inbound volume. But here again is where things get concerning. Local stockpiles of Australian-grown cannabis surged 158%, hitting 38,000 kilograms sitting in storage. Meanwhile, stockpiles of imported cannabis actually fell, meaning overseas suppliers are moving product faster and more efficiently than local producers. That does not surprise me. The issue right now in Australia isn't quality. Australia produces excellent flower, actually. The issue is access. So many Australian cultivators, they lack direct-to-patient channels or strong branded retail presence. They rely on intermediaries and wholesalers who now prefer cheaper, large volume imports. So exports aren't offering much relief either. When you look at Germany and New Zealand, they remain key destinations, but UK exports, they've actually been cut in half. And in Thailand, which barely exported any cannabis to Australia last year, is shipping more than 1,000 kilograms with more growth coming. So in all this, the message is definitely clear. Australia, they risk becoming a second-tier player in its own domestic market unless producers secure better distribution or expand globally. So without change, the headwinds, they will continue to build, which, as I said from the top, it's a common theme with many countries right now this week. All right, now and finally, let's move to Israel, where the medical cannabis program right now is shrinking for the first time in more than 10 years. What is going on? So a peer-reviewed study in the Journal of Cannabis Research, it shows patient numbers fell by 7.5% in the early part of 2025. This follows major reforms that shifted prescribing from the Ministry of Health to the HMOs, creating new friction, more gatekeeping, and stricter oversight. Patient numbers, they dropped to 129,900 by March. And also, here's the interesting twist. Average monthly doses actually went up, with more patients receiving 40 grams or more. So when you look at this, the lion's share of demand is now coming from a smaller patient base. So that's rather interesting. The latest Israel cannabis report from Prohibition Partners, it shows how wide the ripple effects have become. Flower still accounts for 94% of all prescribed formats. Imports hit 4,446 kilograms, nearly equal to all domestically grown supply. And local cultivators, they face oversupply and again, pricing pressure. Data decentralization, it also has created large blind spots in prescribing patterns and diagnosis. Some of those diagnoses are PSD and chronic pain. They remain the top treatment categories, but the broader system right now is indeed struggling. So you have reduced transparency, which makes it harder for policymakers and businesses to track what's actually happening in the market. When we look at Israel as well, it was once considered a pioneer in medical cannabis research and regulation. And today, to be honest with you, it's becoming a cautionary example of how decentralized reforms, inconsistent data, and shifting oversight can stall an entire industry. Why does this seem to be happening across many countries right now? So all in all, we want to give you the latest updates on what's happening in Israel, what's happening in Thailand, what's happening in Germany, and also what is happening in Australia. Leave your comments below. How much is the international market a concern for you? Because whatever is going on today, you need to focus on tomorrow. And a lot of these countries, they have major implications for foreign investment with many companies that trade here in North America. So we hope you get some good insight here in our latest TDR Weekly Recap presented by Prohibition Partners. Leave your comments below. Let us know if you have any questions. We got a good interview coming up later this week. It talks about France and the potential upside. 70 million people in that country. But did you know it is the biggest illegal cannabis market in Europe? So if we can flip that, you got 70 million people, and could it be the next Germany? We'll be posting that next week on TDR, so make sure you stay connected. And by staying connected, make sure to like, subscribe, and smash on that bell for all notifications. That's our latest here at TD, everyone. I'm your host, Shad Deals. Enjoy your weekend, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care, everyone.